afternoon, everyone. My name is Valentina Jimenez, and today I will be talking about or sharing my experience of how I got my current job as a teaching assistant here at UND. And this is for my class Aviation 485 Senior Capstone. So the objectives of this presentation is sharing my experience of how I got my current job, the process, also any additional recommendations for those of you that are seeking for a job here at UND. That's the main objective of this presentation. Okay, starting off, self-introduction. I'm currently a senior majoring in commercial aviation and aviation management with a safety specialization, and as of now, as of August of 2025, I got a job as a teaching assistant or safety associate for the aviation class 412, which is aviation data analytics. And basically, my duty or my role is to provide instruction to students on the fundamentals of GE EMS, which stands for Event Measuring System. In addition, we work with industry partners such as GE, Boeing, Delta, Endeavor, and many more for elaborating any solutions using various fleet data. So starting off, how did I hear about this job? So before this job, I was working at Wilkerson Dining Center, but I've always wanted to incorporate my current majors into the actual field. I wanted to start working for either flying, either as an aviation manager or even as just aviation safety. Hence, I started looking around, and because I'm an international student, I'm subject to only be working on campus. So I started looking around the UND career website. As you can see, this is the website. So for those of you that actually need it, this is the website. And basically, I started looking around what jobs would make me happy for me to be applying my current job, my current skills, and even just starting off by applying my majors. And that's when I found out about this teaching assistant position for aviation 412. So starting off with the application, so basically, and I think this is the most important step, is always reading through the job description just to make sure that you fulfill the requirements, that you have these skills, and just if it's the job you're expecting for. So I was reading the job description about this teaching assistant opportunity for aviation 412. Afterwards, I was looking at the requirements. What were the requirements? In this case, for me, the requirements for becoming a teaching assistant was basically have taken the class Aviation 412. I took it back in fall of 2024. Have a rough idea of what EMS is, which again is the system that we use in this class for creating events and measuring flight data and analyzing flight data. Afterwards, I just gathered all the necessary documents. So for this job application, I needed to include my resume, I need to include a cover letter, and also I had the option to add a letter of recommendation. It wasn't mandatory, but if something I've learned is you should always include as much information as you can, because you want to highlight your profile as for your employer. And afterwards, I just filled out the application with all my documents, all my personal information. Throughout the application, they also ask, especially for UND, they will ask you have you ever worked for UND? So you will be answering those types of questions, and that's pretty much it for the application process. Afterwards, after 2 weeks of filling out my application and sending all the required documents, I heard back from Professor Weil, who's in charge of Aviation 412. And then we scheduled an in-person interview, including the other teaching assistants, for the interview process. And then I added in here the questions that they asked me. So pretty much they started off by asking me, tell us about yourself. And for me, this question can be a little bit tricky because you don't want to extend yourself, but also you don't want to provide little information. You just want to be concise, but also try to engage with the employer. So in my case, I tried to be as concise as I could be, but also trying to be engaging. So I started off by telling them I'm currently majoring in commercial aviation and aviation management with a safety specialization. I'm currently working on my commercial license. some skills that highlight myself is that I'm able to speak 3 languages, which are Spanish, French, and English. And I told them where I'm from, because I'm an international student, so I told them I'm from Colombia. Afterwards, they told me, describe yourself in 3 words. For me, that was also a trick question, because I wanted like to provide like those like specific skills they were looking for, but also that they align with myself. So in that case, I describe myself by saying I'm detail oriented thanks to my flight training. I like to get out of my comfort zone. I'm not the type of person that likes to just stay in one place. I like to push myself, because for me it's really important to be constantly learning, because every learning experience is a new opportunity for me and a new potential skill I can acquire. And last but not least, I'm super organized. For me, that's like the main thing in my life, is being constantly organized. Afterwards, they started being more technical, so they asked me, what project did you work on when you took this class? What was your role? So again, this class, how it works is there's 2 main projects. The first main project is a UND project, where you will work with like another partner or at least 2 other classmates, and basically you're gonna choose from all the flight data we have in this class. You're gonna start creating events such as like airspeed exceedance, such as like altitude exceedance, some stuff like that. And then the other part of the project, or at least the second project for this class, is working with an industry partner. As I mentioned before, it's either Delta or GE or Boeing, or for this year it's Endeavor. So I told them my experience in that time in fall of 2024 when I was taking this class. I was working with GE. We were developing some emergency descent events for light aircraft. So I told them a little bit about this project. I cannot mention a lot because I signed an NDA, non-disclosure agreement, so I cannot provide a lot of information. But overall, I told my my interviewers, which is Professor Wild and the other TAs, about what I did for the project, what was my role in that case. I was the one who was in charge of like gathering all the data, constantly taking notes, constantly like analyzing data and just gathering all the information. So that was my role for that project. Afterwards, they asked me, how familiar are you with the event measuring system? So for me, I like to be honest. I don't want to be, of course I want to be like, I want to highlight who I am, but also one main characteristic is being honest. And I told them I've used the system, I have like a basic understanding, but I cannot say I'm proficient, also because when I was doing this interview, it was back in April of 2025, this year, but I took that class in fall of 2024. So it was quite a few months that I haven't used the program at all. So for me, it was important to tell them like, yes, I know the basics, but I am not proficient. Of course, I'm more than willing to be constantly practicing if I get the job, because I want to show them that even if I'm not the most like proficient with the program, at least I'm willing to be constantly learning and just pushing myself so I can be at the standards they're expecting me to be at. Afterwards, they asked me, if you get this job, what makes you a good TA? So I started kind of like analyzing, and pretty much what I said was like, okay, a TA, a teaching assistant, is willing to help students, but it's not just like giving them the answer. Teaching assistant is basically like helping them get to the answer, walk them through the process and then help them out, but kind of like also like help them think, help them like get to that answer. And also being a good listener, and of course like applying other skills such as like detail-oriented, being organized, and most importantly being responsible and respectful, because this is like a friendly environment and we always want to seek for being respectful with everyone and inclusive. And lastly, this is a question that really highlighted this interview for me, because I've never had this question before, and it asked me, if you could be a sea animal, what would you be? So of course I wanted to think this question, but I didn't want to take a lot of like the time thinking about it. But at the end of the day, I answered a dolphin, because dolphins are known for being like really smart animals, but also they like to communicate, and I am somebody that seeks constant communication in real time, because that's what I've learned throughout my flight training, throughout my work experience in my previous jobs. And overall, communication is really, really important. And also because I think dolphins also like to engage on like pushing themselves and going like somewhere else, exploring. And for me, that's pretty much, I align with that animal. Now, how did I prepare myself for this interview? So of course, again, I cannot emphasize as much as I can. Always read the job description. The job description has everything you need to know about what are you gonna be asked on. And then afterwards, use your resources. In my case, I decided to use AI, and then I kind of like copy and pasted the job description, and I asked AI like, hey, can you start like asking me like potential questions? So that's how I practiced. I'm sure there's other resources that I will talk about it in a few minutes. But basically, yeah, I just started like reading the job description, then practicing along with AI, like potential questions, just because I wanted to be prepared. I didn't want to seem like in an interview where like I'm just like sitting there just thinking and thinking and thinking. I just wanted like to be able like to think for a little bit, but not take a lot of time thinking. Okay, and now what other opportunities have now presented as a result of this experience? So of course, the main one is I got the job, so now currently I can call myself a teacher assistant, or as we call ourselves, safety associate. So that's like the biggest opportunity I've had after this job interview. Also, the fact that the good thing about this class is you can network, because as we're working along with industry partners, you can network with Boeing, with Endeavor, with Delta. So it's a huge experience for me. So that was one of the biggest things that I really, really liked about. Afterwards, basically it's just learning other skills like pressure and time management, also because I have to be teaching in front of like 20 other students. Usually they're seniors or at least juniors. So that was like the biggest thing. Also have more hand-on experience with EMS, because it's not just me learning, it's also me trying to teach other students how to use this program. So of course it's a huge challenge, but it's something that I'm really happy I'm doing. And last but not least is acquire and still improving my teaching skills, because in the future, if I want to become a CFI, this teaching assistant position is allowing me to practice those skills, so that way when I become a flight instructor, it's going to be an easier path for me. And the last question is, if I were to do it all over again, what would you do differently? For me, the biggest thing, and it's something that I found out about this year, is using career services. I never seek to them. I actually didn't know a lot about them, but afterwards, after like some reading and some researching, I found that the career services here at UND has a lot of helpful resources. First of all, resumes. They have so many good resume templates for every single major, and they look professional, they look concise, and I think that's like a huge thing that I wish I knew at the time I was applying, because unfortunately the resume that I used to have wasn't as good as the one I have right now. Also, they have potential interview questions. They're always willing to help you with interview questions, and I think that's really good, because you don't have to use AI. You can be using somebody from career services helping you out along that. And last but not least, if you're the type of person that does not have any professional attire or any like business casual attire, you can always go to their website where they have like all this useful resources, but also you can make appointments, and you can even get 3 items for free for professional attire. So I think that was really, really good. I wish I could have used that before, but well, I think it was important for telling you, all of you, the resources we have available as UND students. And last but not least, so I just wanted like to show you guys what my resume looked like. So before, this is not the actual resume I sent with my application, but it's kind of like, it looks similar to this. It had color, it wasn't like super concise, and actually like it wasn't good. And then I went to career services, and then I completely modified my resume, where I'm including all my majors, my GPA, any like certificates, my flight hours, and then, well, as of now, here's like some of like my work experience that is including right now my teaching assistant experience and other job experience. So overall, I highly recommend use your resources, read the job description completely, and always seek out for someone. always try to learn, always try to use those resources because they will be helpful in the future. And by that, thank you so much for watching. I hope this video helps those of you who are looking for a job, no matter if it's at UND or if it's like outside of UND. Just make sure you're using your resources wisely. And that's it. Thank you so much. Have a good afternoon.